Hi there, welcome. On our screen today we have a woman bought 130 kg of tomatoes for 52,000 Ghana cedis. So we first have our first information coming up. So we'll say that the cost price, so we'll have what? The cost price, right, of 130 kg of tomatoes was given as what? 52,000 Ghana cedis. So we'll list that coming up. So we'll have our cost price CP of 130 kg of tomatoes. Okay, to be equal to 52,000 Ghana cedis. We continue to read. It says she sold half of them at a profit of 30%. So that means we have half of the tomatoes being sold. So we'll have our profit percent of half. So half of 130 will give us what? 65. 65 kg of tomatoes. So we know that the profit percent was given as what? 30%. Okay, so that means that we need to know the selling price of the half of the kg that you sold, and as well the cost price related to what? Half of the tomatoes. So first, we can talk about the cost price. So what should be the cost price of what? Half of the tomatoes. So we'll say cost price of half, which is 65 kg, should be equal to, so we know that for 130 kg, the cost was what? 52. So if you have sold 65, then it means that half of the total should be what? 26,000 Ghana cedis, right? So we'll have here as the cost price of what? 26,000 for the half of the tomatoes what? That have been sold. So once we know the cost price, then we can guarantee the selling price. So by formula, we know that selling price should be equal to cost price plus what? Profit. So that means that once we know our profit percent, we can then find our profit. How do we go? We know that profit percent, formula-wise, should be equal to profit over the cost price, and then multiplying what? 100. Okay, or say 100%. So we know our profit percent is what? 30%. So we'll have 30% coming up here. Okay, and that should be equal to P. But we know the cost price for the half of the tomatoes was what? 26,000. So we have 26,000 also coming up here, and then multiplying what? 100%. All right. So here we know percentage can cancel off percent when we divide. So we can deal with what? The numbers. So we'll have here 30 multiplying what? 26,000. Okay. And that should be equal to 100 multiplying what? And P multiplying what? 100. So for us to find the value of P, we'll divide both sides by what? 100. So we'll have 30 multiplying 26,000 divide all by 100, and that should give us the value of P. So therefore we can say that P should be equal to, so with the help of the calculator, supposed to get 7,800 Ghana cedis as profit. So since we define our selling price here, then the selling price of the half of the tomatoes that have been sold will be equal to the cost price, which is what? 26,000 plus the profit of what? 7,800. And what should you get? With our calculator, supposed to get 33,800. then we are true. So we know the selling price, we know the profit, and we know the cost price of half of the tomatoes that have been sold. So let's go back to our question and continue to read. So now we are able to provide a working solution to the second statement. So let's continue. He said the rest of the tomatoes began to go bad. Okay, let's continue to read. She then reduced the selling price per kg by what? 12%. So reduce. She reduced the selling price of the kg by what? 12%. So that means we have what? A discount given here by 12%. So that means that we need to know the selling price per kg for half of the tomatoes that was what? Sold, right? So let's go back and then work out the selling price. So we know that the total selling price for the half of the tomatoes sold here, we have computed to be what? 33,800. So for us to get the selling price per kg, we will say that selling price per kg supposed to be equal to the total selling price of the half of the tomatoes divided by what? The number of what? Half of the tomatoes that we have what? Sold. So number of kg sold, right? So how do we go? We will say that here, since we have the total selling price given here as 33,800, then we can find per selling price of kg. So we'll have here as what? 33,800 divided by how many number of kg of tomatoes that was sold? We have that as what? 65, right? So 65, you divide by 65. So what do we get? With your calculator, supposed to get a value of what? 520. 520. Then we are true. So let's continue with our reading. It says that the rest of the tomatoes began to go bad. She then reduced the selling price per kg by 12%. So now we know the selling price per kg is what? 520 as per the number of tomatoes that was what? Sold in this particular case. So you have gotten 520, the selling price. So how do we get the new selling price per kg after we reducing, because it began to go bad, after we reducing what? The selling price per kg by 12%. Okay, so that means we'll have what? Our new selling price coming up. So we'll have new selling price per kg to be equal to, so that means you're supposed to have it here as what? The old selling price per kg, follow carefully, minus the old price selling price per kg, which is the old one, multiplying what? The discount rate, which is the reduction. So that's what we're going to do. So we know the selling price per kg for the old to be what? 520 per calculation. And then, so discounts mean we need to reduce the old selling price by 12%. So we'll have it here as what? 520 multiplying what? 12%. And what do we get? So you're supposed to get here as what? 4. So we're going to get here as 457 point what? 60. You can check that with your calculator. Or you can also go by this approach or alternative method. We can say that the new selling price per kg supposed to be equal to the selling price per kg, which is the old, multiplying what? The complement rate. So the complement rate here means what? You're going to subtract the discount that was given in the question from 100. So you're going to get here as what? 520 multiplying 100 minus what? 12, or in percent. This is what we call the complement rate. So you subtract the discount given in the question from 100. When we do that, we're supposed to get the same value there as what? 457.60. So now we know the new selling price after the discount was given. Let's go back and continue with our reading. So we have to calculate I, the new selling price, for which we have calculated it here as I, already given as this. Okay. Then you are asked to calculate the percentage profit on the whole transaction if you throw away 5 kg of what? Of the bad tomatoes. So that means you're supposed to know the remaining tomatoes after 5 of the kg of tomatoes being thrown away. So let's talk about remaining tomatoes. Remaining tomatoes. So remaining tomatoes supposed to be equal to 65, all right, minus what? 5. But we threw away 5 as bad. So we're going to get the remaining as what? 60 kg of tomatoes. So once we have that, that means that then we can also go along to find the total selling price of what? The remaining tomatoes of 60 kg. Because we have been able to calculate that after some began to go bad, we're able to calculate the new selling price where the reduction of 12% was given. So you just have to multiply the new price by the remaining kg of tomatoes. So we can say that the selling price, let's say selling price 2, okay? So let's say selling price 2, or let's say here's supposed to be 1, okay? But we already make here so selling price. So let's say selling price subscript 1, supposed to be equal to the new selling price, okay, per kg, multiplying what? The remaining what? Tomatoes. So we know the new selling price per kg to what? 457.60, and then multiplying what? 60. So what do we get here? So here we'll have what? A total figure of what? 27,456. But note that we are asked to find the percentage profit on the whole transaction. On the whole transaction. So we need to know the total sales and then the total cost of this whole transaction. All right. So now, once we know the selling price of the remaining tomatoes, then we can find the total selling price. So we can say total selling price supposed to give us what? The first selling price plus the second selling price, subscript 1. Yeah, okay. So what do we get? Yeah, we know the first selling price was given us what? 33,800. So bring that up here. Plus the second selling price after we've chewed away 5 kg, we had a figure of 27,456. So therefore, what will be the total? We're supposed to get a figure of what? 61,000, okay, 256, the total selling price of the whole transaction. But we also know that the cost was given as what? 52,000 here that you can see. Okay. So therefore, that means we need to calculate for our profit before we can calculate the profit percentage in that case. So we say that our profit supposed to be equal to the total selling price minus the total cost price. The total selling price here, we had a figure of what? 61,256 minus the total cost price that we're given as what? 52,000. So we're supposed to get a profit figure of 9,256. 9,256. So once we have that, therefore we can say that then our profit percent for the whole transaction is supposed to be equal to, formula wise, we have profit divided by the cost price and then multiplying what? 100. So our profit has been computed as what? 9,256 divide all by the cost price of what? 52,000, and then multiply that by what? 100. So what will be our profit percent? So our profit percent is supposed to give us what? 17.8%. And that will give us a profit for this whole transaction. So let's take note of that. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the section. Bye-bye.